Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 326, cover dated November 1995. This cover by Joe Madureira, inked by Tim Townsend. It's pretty wild, featuring Gambit there with his bow staff, his charged bow staff right under Sabretooth's throat. We've got that popped eye there from Sabretooth. That's a trope of Madureira's art from this time period. And that wide open, huge mouth with all the teeth showing as well. But the most amusing piece of this kinetic cover is the whiskers that Madureira has given Sabretooth here and here. That's pretty funny stuff. Cover caption, Evil Natures, and the story itself is a type of rumination on the nature of evil, with most particular relevance to these two characters. So let's open it up to the opening page, and we do get a splash to open, and it is Gambit, and he's sitting out on the roof of the X-Mansion in civilian clothes. I think very, very well drawn by Madureira there, and also the spotting of blacks is excellent, and we've got the computer coloring indicating the lightning flashes in the background. That is a nice moody opening splash page. So Gambit is thinking about his past and how he believed he'd left his past behind him, that his time with the X-Men had in some way exonerated him of his crime. Now the crime hasn't been specified yet what it is, but we're getting major hints about it ever since he kissed Rogue at the end of Legion Quest X-Men 41 in the Israeli desert, and she absorbed his powers and memories, and she's gone missing from the X-Men. She's gone on the road with Iceman, and she is not coming home. So Gambit's brooding about what she's learned from absorbing his memories. And Gambit, the one person who's been reaching out to him consistently in the preceding issues of the title is Storm. And of course, they have a relationship that goes all the way back to the beginning of Gambit's appearances in X-Men. That's all the way back to Uncanny X-Men 366. And so she makes some reference to that in the course of their little conversation. But that's a really nice double page spread there. The title of the story is The Nature of Evil. And the creative team is Scott Lobdell, writer, Joe Madureira, penciler, Tim Townsend, inker, Steve Buccellato, Electric Crayon colors, Richard Starkings, and Comic Craft on the digital lettering. So Storm says to him, Gambit, I understand from Bobby that Rogue will not be returning home anytime soon. Would you like to talk about it? Actually, Stormy, and that's how he used to call her way back in Uncanny X-Men 366, 67 and on. I came up here to the roof so I could spend some time alone. She says she doesn't believe him. And he says, when I met you, Cher, you were trapped in a 12-year-old body. I thought someday she'll grow out of being so stubborn. No such luck. So two old friends having a chat on the roof in the middle of a night storm. And just one other note to make before pushing on with the story, and that is Madureira's reconfiguration of the original Dave Cockrum costume for Storm. I think it's pretty interesting, updating for 1995. It looks good. And now we get a very interesting layout here from Madureira, the 9-panel grid, and a little play with the flashes of lightning in the background as well. Somewhat slightly reminiscent of Watchmen in that regard. And so basically Gambit asks her about whether she's okay after killing Morrow in the previous issue. That was the double-sized issue 325. And you know what? That was all drawn by Madureira, that double-sized issue, and it's nice to see him on the subsequent issue rather than yet another fill-in artist. So, that's, as I said, very nice to see Madureira consistent just for the moment on the artwork on the title. And this is excellent art throughout this particular issue too. So they have a little philosophical debate about whether people can change. And Storm actually maintains that there was nothing she could have done that would have changed the outcome. So Gambit says, you believe that sometimes a person can't become something better. And she says, I would like to believe there is always room for growth, for evolution of the soul. But yes, there would seem to be some things like the true nature of a person that cannot be changed. So the title of the story is Nature of Evil. And what if a person's true nature is evil? So Gambit's there in deep shadow, And Storm asks him, what does he believe? And he says, not much of anything at this moment, not much of anything, but she holds his hand. So the scene switches then to San Francisco, a convention center there, and the Beast, Dr. Henry McCoy, is giving a presentation of everything he knows about the legacy virus. Because a few issues earlier, Trish Tilby made public that the legacy virus is both out there and also has spread to humans, because the first and only to date infected human is Moira McTaggart, herself a research geneticist. So the Beast concludes his presentation. That's nicely drawn by Madureira there. And what I really like is the detail that he has put into this particular panel of all these academics in the audience as well. So he's not scrimping on the detail there. And then Beast is interrupted by Professor X, which is a little bit of a surprise. But at this point in X-Men continuity, nobody knows that Professor X himself is a mutant. But here's a little oddity, and you tell me what you think about this in the comments to the video. The Professor is in his hover chair. Now, the hover chair is partly built from or incorporates Shi'ar technology. And the X-Men always endeavored to keep it out of public view. So the Professor, when he was making public appearances, would appear in a conventional wheelchair, never in the Shi'ar tech hover wheelchair. So this is an interesting choice here. I wonder, is it a mistake, like Madureira drawing him in the chair when he shouldn't have, or what is it? But it's something I noted in any case. So the Professor continues and says, look, he says, with a world population of over 3 billion people, you've only been able to present 8 recorded cases, 9 if you count Dr. McTaggart's infection. Now that took me by surprise. In 1995, was the world population 3 billion? I thought it was 5 billion then. In any case, the Professor continues and says that he frankly questions whether this condition, the legacy virus, even falls within the Center for Disease Control's classification of a level 4 biohazard contagion, let alone the potential genetic time bomb it has been portrayed so far. So the Beast demurs. He says that he also makes the point as well that he's compelled to point out that it was the overzealous media that coined the term potential epidemic. And that's a little dig at his ex-girlfriend Trish Tilby. The Professor continues and says, to stand here in front of the world community and incite panic and fear in the general public would appear to me to be the highest irresponsibility. So there seems to be apparently a disagreement between these public experts on mutant genetics, but it's all a ploy, it's all a ruse that's being worked out between the Beast and the Professor. And Beast there thinks telepathically, his thoughts are open to the Professor. He says, ouch, you certainly know how to go for the jugular vein. And the Professor apologizes telepathically. As discussed, it's all for the best. Furthermore, it seems to be working, but then they're interrupted by a Genosian expert, Dr. Renee Majcom. And so Beast, she is upset about the fact that over 300 mutates have died in Genosha. So at this point, Beast calls Dr. Valerie Cooper to the lectern, and she says that regarding her debriefing of a recent X-Factor excursion to Genosha, the documents have been opened under the Freedom of Information Act, and she's testified that she did not believe that country's current medical crisis with the mutates posed a threat to world health or security concerns, and she still believes that to be the case. And so she basically concludes by saying, should we be concerned about the legacy virus? Yes. But is it a doomsday virus which threatens every man, woman and child on the planet? I do not believe there's adequate scientific information at this point to make that argument. So that's putting to bed the kind of panic that could have emerged with all of the hatred there would be towards mutants on the back of Trish Tilby breaking the legacy virus story. So here in Moore is the only human to have been infected. It's Moira MacTaggart, and she's watching Professor X's, and she's watching like a telescreen of the conference in San Francisco with certain members of Excalibur from the period. Like there we've got Megan, Douglock and Nightcrawler. And I like this little detail, this fun little detail from Madureira in the art, where Nightcrawler is using his tail to pour from the pot tea for Moira. I think that's really nice little detail, fun little detail. So Moira is saying, our knowledge seems to increase every day about the virus. The more it appears to function less like a virus and more like a Megan fills in, a designer gene. So they're getting somewhere with their researches about the legacy virus. And Nightcrawler says, the panic has already started to spread. Headline on page 1, retraction on page 63. Perhaps that madman Strife has accomplished what he set out to do when he released that damn virus, and the damage is already done. So this could be the closing down of the legacy virus as like a major storyline in the X books, more or less, kind of petering out in terms of its not being as virulent or as deadly as was first thought, and that maybe Strife, the way that it's being read now, is that Strife's original plan was to create chaos and panic rather than actually to unleash a deadly pandemic virus. So this is an interesting little device of Madureira's as well, where we have, in a sense, like the establishing shot of Mur at the end of the page, but actually it works as a transition to the establishing shot on the opening of the next page. And also one little detail here that I like is the lightning strike here. So it's as if the storm has moved from Westchester across the Atlantic to Scotland, because then we pick up at the Xavier Institute later in the night and the storm has passed. So I like that. And as I said, also the transition from one view of Mur to a view of the X-Mansion. And here we've got Tabitha Smith, formerly Boom Boom, now Boomer, observing Sabretooth. So X-Force has moved into the X-Mansion, observing Sabretooth in the danger room, and he is stalking some prey. That's a great anchor image by Madureira of Sabretooth. I like the little detail here in the foreground of the little ladybird there on the blade of grass as well. It's a nice little detail. Also, the choice to show the shadow of the leaves from this particular shrub here over Sabretooth's shoulder and arm muscles as well. That's nicely done. So Boom Boom basically starts banging on the window of the observation point of the danger room, disturbs Sabretooth, and it's a holographic rabbit hops away from him. So he was stalking the rabbit. Again, look at the detail there. Spotting of black's really nice, but also the detail of the shadows of the leaves on his back as well. That's nicely done. I like that. So Boom Boom is kind of wondering about Sabretooth, wondering about his bona fides, in terms of whether the old malevolent Sabretooth might be in there. She stares into his eyes, and for the first time she doubts, and so she closes down the window of the observation deck of the danger room, and there she is. She's doubting. I like that open border panel that Madureira has chosen to conclude the page on, and you can obviously see on the 2 pages here what a contribution the colouring is making to the art as well. Now this is a great page here, and also interesting, just happenstance that we've got an advertisement on the right hand side featuring Jim Lee's version of Gambit, and just here on the left we've got Madureira's version of Gambit in the same costume, but it's like the old X-Men chief artist Jim Lee setting the look of the title back in 1990, 1991, and now in 95 going on into 1996. It's Madureira's style that is now the premium prestige version of the X-Men. So what a difference like 5 years makes. almost 5 years makes in terms of changes for the X-Men and changes in terms of what's regarded as hot or popular art in the comics industry at the time too. So in any case, Gambit is here. That's a great upshot on Gambit, and he is there to have a little talk with Sabretooth. We've seen them clashing since Sabretooth came into the mansion, specifically in Adjectiveless X-Men 33 and Adjectiveless X-Men 38, and that was before Wolverine popped his claw into Sabretooth's brain, which is healing slowly, and Sabretooth recognizes him. "You're called Gambit." That's a start. Excuse me, says Gambit as he leaps down. It's a nice shot of him leaping down, and Madureira's decision to render most of his face there in silhouette is an interesting stylistic device. Also little speed lines coming off his knee pads there as he drops to the floor of the danger room. All very interesting. "That's a start," he says. "Now let's see how much more you remember about your life before Wolverine poked you in the head." But there's a scene switch. So we're in San Francisco. Nice art on this page. Establishing shot there of the Golden Gate Bridge and this sports car, which is being driven by the Beast. So this is subsequent to the conclusion of the conference, and he's thinking to himself about what went on at the conference and how he feels like he left his soul there. The truth of the matter is, I'm not entirely comfortable with the ethics regarding what the Professor and I just perpetrated. And then he says aloud, "Then again, if you can't trust Charles Xavier, who can you?" But he's in for a little shock as he turns the corner there, turns the bend. And I like this device of Madureira's where we've got a shot close up on his eye and then a transition to the wheel of the sports car as it screeches to a halt. And we can see what's shocked him. So in the headlights of the car is the empty wheelchair, the Shi'ar version 1. And it's nice to see it kind of popped open there as well at the front. So you get a greater sense of the like how that wheelchair kind of works. I guess that's kind of based, I guess by that point there probably already was a toy of it. You can let me know in the video comments if you ever had that toy of the chair and Professor X. So he leaps out of the sports car, and of course the Professor hasn't jumped off or been thrown off the side of the cliff. Instead, he's crawled out to the edge of the outcrop of rock to enjoy a moment of tranquility after the conference for some peace of mind. So this now allows for a philosophical dialogue and debate between the Professor and Beast regarding the Professor's kind of ethical situation at the moment in relation to whether he believes he's making a difference or how to make a difference. And in particular, they zone in on the question of Sabretooth staying at the mansion and whether he can be helped, whether he can be rehabilitated or not. So the Professor says, "I've always believed that we couldn't just let the accidents of our birth define us as simply good or evil. Because we were more, we had to be more. I took Creed into our home against the better judgment of most of the X-Men, first and foremost because I thought I could stop the killing. What's more, a part of me wanted to help him, to cure him of his homicidal lust. I'm afraid I've failed on both counts." But Beast disagrees, and he says, "With all due respect, balderdash." And I like the little kind of body language detail here, the acting of the character where he's taken off his spectacles in order to make this point more seriously to the Professor. Nicely laid out page there. Like the little zoom in on the Professor as he's talking there with his hands clenched. It's interesting storytelling. And then we're back at the X-Mansion, back in the danger room, and back to that little chat between Gambit and Sabretooth. Another interesting top-up angle, like a worm's eye view of Gambit there, with the foreshortening on his figure. That's nicely done by Madureira. So Gambit has a little presentation for Sabretooth, and up pops a hologram of this particular man. He was Sabretooth's pediatrician when he was 9 years old. I died trying to help you. So Sabretooth, young Sabretooth, his first murder. And he says here in the present, I'm sorry. But the question is he? So Gambit continues with the holographic presentation. We have all these various people that he murdered in his youth at the age of 13. And also when maybe shortly after that he was a runaway and he killed this woman, and her child who saw the body was traumatized forever afterwards. This woman was just asleep in the middle of the night. Her mistake was sleeping with the window open. So he's surrounded by these holographic projections, excuse me, of all these people he's murdered, including this particular priest from X-Men Unlimited number 3, which goes all the way back to the professor taking Sabretooth in to the X-Mansion for rehabilitation, and Sabretooth lashes out at the priest. And Gambit says he's doing it all because he wants Sabretooth to remember everyone. When you go to sleep at night, I want you to see every face in every dream. I want you to wake up retching from the taste of their blood on your tongue, eyes opened or closed. I want you to recall every life you shattered, the ones you killed and the ones who died because of you. And then the last holographic projection is Birdie, who was his assistant and who was able to calm his homicidal rages. But she's gone, she's dead, murdered, lost to you forever, just like every other soul unfortunate to cross your path. So Sabretooth leaps at him there. It's a great image of him leaping at Gambit. And Gambit, of course, is able to knock him back with the, it's not a card, but rather the device he's using to present the holographic presentation. So he charges it up and sends it straight at Sabretooth's chest. And then this is our last projection. And this calls back to events that were first told in Adjectiveless X-Men number 33. I've got a video review of that issue on the channel if you want to check it out, if you don't remember it. And it goes all the way back to the first encounter between a 17-year-old Gambit on a rite of passage theft mission in Paris. And here the denouement or climax was on the facade of Notre Dame in Paris, the cathedral there, the Gothic cathedral. And Sabretooth gave him this impossible choice between the girl he'd been romancing and his stepbrother, Henri. Who would he save? And so Sabretooth is here now witnessing this. And there, in the past, he drops them. Gambit saved his stepbrother rather than the woman who died on the ground. And so the moment keeps replaying, and Sabretooth being macabre about the whole business, the oops that he says there, and Sabretooth in the present asking, but why? They were helpless. Oops, oops, mon Dieu, says Gambit. You're a mutant with the power to tear flesh and crush bone with your teeth and claws. They were all helpless. So Sabretooth doesn't want to remember, but Gambit insists. Don't you dare turn away, Creed. You think your victims got to turn away when you pulled their insides out? People, and this is the interesting emotional climax of the whole scene and this particular page, when Gambit says, people like us ain't allowed to forget, because Gambit has a guilty conscience too. And in certain sense, it would be beautiful for him if he could be an amnesiac like Sabretooth apparently is. Gambit can't stop remembering the victims of the mysterious crime from his past, and he wants Sabretooth to remember all his victims too. If he's in pain, he wants Sabretooth in pain as well. But the whole scene is interrupted by Storm's arrival, and she's in costume, and she basically says, leave, to Gambit now, or I'll remove you from this room. So the tie between them, the sympathy she had for him at the beginning of the issue is gone at this point. And Gambit says, you will remember, Creed. He says quietly to him, because when you don't, I'll be here to remind you. So off he goes without a word after that. And this is interesting. So Storm says nothing to Sabretooth She shuts down the danger room, and he's in this cage like an animal as she walks away. And it's a bit much, really, because at this point, everybody believes, even if they have their doubts, that he's not a danger because of his brain damage. So why put him in a cage like that? It's a bit much, but it makes the point anyway that they are suspicious of him. He's a dangerous quantity, even when even when brain damaged. So then we're back to the philosophical chat, debate, discussion between Professor X and the Beast, overlooking the San Francisco Bay. And Beast basically says to the Professor, the truth of the matter is, genetic twists notwithstanding, Victor Creed is a man who chose to be evil. He chose to maim and torture and kill. He enjoyed it. He lived for it. Yet he is no more pure evil than you or I are pure good. The same free choice he exerted to commit those acts is the same choice each of us makes to combat them. Now, if he wanted to change his mind, says Beast, and I like the way that Madureira has rendered him in shadow, mostly shadow for that. It's a shadowy proposition, but the Professor responds angrily, telepathy? Am I supposed to use my mutant power to reconfigure his mind? As you said, I'm not a god. That is not an option. So that's the point that Beast was making. No, it's not. But maybe some readers might remember the choice that Professor X made in Adjectiveless X-Men 25 to wipe Magneto's mind. And that's something that he's going to have to pay a price for in coming stories in the Onslaught storyline. And then we're the last page. So the Beast says, simply put, sir, we couldn't change Sabretooth. Don't let Sabretooth change us. So the Professor looks away and he says, I won't, Hank, and thank you for reminding this teacher of how much I can still learn from my students, former or otherwise. And the Beast is his oldest aged student, because he's turned 30 recently. And for the wake-up call that mutant abilities aside, in the final analysis, we're all still only human. It's interesting, this panel here where he's crunching the soil on top of the cliff's edge when he's saying that, which means that he's under some emotional tension as he's saying it. It's hinting at something. The Beast puts his hand on his shoulder and says, Victor Creed committed many horrible crimes against humanity. And the Professor says quietly, the same humanity the X-Men have all sworn our lives to protect. And as the Beast climbs back to his car, he says, no, sir, I don't think the problem with Sabretooth is as complicated as you think. So that is the nature of evil. Sabretooth is evil, but it's by virtue of his choices. And that's it. That's the point that's made by this particular issue. So the letters here are about issue 323. Everybody enjoyed it. Next issue, deep in the heart of the South America, a man wanders with a mind bereft of memories and a heart full of passion to change the world. Who could this mystery man be, and what is his connection to the X-Men? Well, you'd have to pick up the subsequent issue to find out. 13 X titles on sale in the month of November. That's a lot for anyone at the time to try and keep up with all of the X books. I do hope that you enjoy this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 326. If you enjoyed the review, please like it on YouTube. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.